The first thing I wanted to talk to you guys about is the idea that your paper has both a map and a signpost for your reader to help them figure out where your information, where your quotes come from. The works cited or bibliography is going to give the full directions to find your source. So that's kind of like a map point, right? It's going to tell your reader who wrote the thing, what it's called, when and where it was published, and any other relevant details that your reader needs to find the text that you're actually looking at. The next thing that we're going to talk about more in this video is the in-text citation, which is really just a brief marker to show your reader where your quote can be found. The first part of that is going to be the first thing that your reader will find in your annotated bibliography for that source, so it makes it very easy to go through if you have multiple sources and pinpoint the correct one. This will usually be your author's last name. In some cases, if you don't have an author, you'll skip to a short title of your work. The next part will be if you have a page number, if you have a line number, anything like that, you'll put that in there to show your reader exactly what part of the article you found your information on. Now, if you don't have a page number, obviously you can't use one, so skip that part if you don't have it. Okay, so the first thing I wanted to talk to you guys about with using quotations in academic writing is a signal phrase. A signal phrase is something that introduces information taken from a source. That doesn't necessarily have to be a quotation, but it's especially important, I think, with a quotation. Usually the signal phrase is going to include the author's name or the title of the work. It'll also just tell your reader what that quotation mark is doing in your paragraph. So don't just leave a quote hanging out with nothing around it of your own words. The analogy I often use about that is it's kind of like taking somebody to a party where the person doesn't know anybody. You want to introduce them. You want to introduce your quote, right, to the other guests at your party, your readers. You don't want to just leave them hanging out awkwardly in the room with everybody wondering, who is that and what are they doing? In the same way, tell us who your quote is. Tell us what it's doing, why it's there, and give us some fun facts and information to help us see how it fits in your argument. So I've given you guys an example down below that I use usually when I'm teaching writing-based, song-based comp class. So my signal phrase here is the Goo Goo Dolls song Better Days asks. And what I've done here is I've given you the performer's name within the signal phrase, so I'm not going to need to do a separate in-text citation for this one. But even more importantly, I've used that asks. So I've told you guys what the context is. I've kind of introduced the quotation. And then after it, I wrote this particular model for a narrative. So after it, it says a line that really resonated with me. That then helps explain where this quote fits within the context of my writing. The next part with you guys is the actual in-text citation, which you're supposed to use for this discussion. So in addition to using your signal phrases and providing the works cited at the end of your essay, you'll often need to use in-text citation to make sure that quotations are properly cited. That's especially true if you haven't mentioned the performer's name. And that slide really needed editing, but we're going to move on. So the next part is a model again. The phrase Neil Young should remember, a Southern man don't need him around anyway. That's a little brief introduction, right, with the phrase and then our quote. I've given you the performer's name in parentheses. In this case, I've also included the name of the song. If this were not a song, if this were maybe a poem, I would do the last name of the poet and the line number. And then I carry on to explain why I'm giving you the quote. It's a very pointed example of how songs can build a dialogue with one another. So there you've got that complete introducing your quote, giving the quote, citing the quote, and explaining the quote. Finally, I'd like to give you a model from an article out of a peer-reviewed journal. This comes from an article called Migration Blues and Jazz Styling. So the first part that I've got in bold here, described by Stuart Nicholson as, is going to be the signal phrase that introduces the quote. They've given us two quotes here. The only art form originated in the United States. In parentheses there's the page number. This one's in Roman numerals. And as America's Greatest Gift to the World, also Roman numerals. They don't need the author's last name because they've already used it in the signal phrase. After they give us the signal phrase, give us the quotes, they go on to expand the idea and show what those quotes are doing. So we've got this description by Stuart Nicholson, and then the thought carries on that jazz captured the cultural imagination and enhanced the social life of rural Zimbabweans that moved to the emerging and fast modernizing large cities such as Bulawayo and Harare. So that's one example from the wild to show you how scholars actually use all of these ideas that we've been talking over. I hope this helped. Have a great week.